Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. We are going to look at what can sometimes be described as the holy grail of the golf swing. This position right here that you see all the best players in, where at P6 when the club shaft is parallel to the ground, the butt end of the club is actually inside the trouser line, the trail elbow is in front of the hip, and that golfer is poised to deliver the club head to the ball with a forward-leaning shaft. It's that elusive position that you see all the great players in, and all the high handicappers end up somewhere over here. So we want to learn to get to this position from this position. Let's tackle that right now. Like I said, we're going to try and move ourselves into this position where the trail elbow is in front of the hip, the handle's more forwards, ready to hit the ball with a forward-leaning shaft like all the best players in the world. And it's really important because this is absolutely a speed piece, and even before then, it's a piece that really controls contact because it enables you to have the handle in a more forwards-leaning position, and having the shaft lean more forwards enables us to hit further forwards on the ground, so it stops the fat and fin shots. It's part of why the best players in the world don't suffer with those shots, give or take the odd, super rare exception, right? So what is happening? How do you go from a picture where you are here to a picture where you are right there? And for this, you need to understand a few concepts. The first one is the motion of the trail arm, right? So the trail arm could be externally rotated, and that's a shoulder motion. It can be externally rotated like so. And notice what happens when I do that. If I externally rotate my trail shoulder, the elbow moves in closer to the lead elbow, right? So the elbow, moves in closer to the lead elbow, like so, right here. The opposite motion would be when I internally rotate this shoulder, and when I do that, you can see how the elbow moves away from the lead elbow, right? So the elbows are moving apart. So my description of this would be that you are squeezing the elbows together. And how are you squeezing the elbows together? You're squeezing the elbows because of external rotation of the trail shoulder, like so. And the picture you invariably see from down the line, if you look at a golfer doing this, I'm in position, I externally rotate this shoulder, the elbow gets to a point where the elbow is pointing down to my hip, and the crease in the elbow and the arm, see how it's pointing upwards at this point in time. If I start to internally rotate that shoulder, it goes the other way. So the elbow starts to point back at the camera, the crease is pointing to the target. Notice the effect on the position of the forearms. So I externally rotate the trail shoulder, and suddenly I've squeezed my elbows, and you can see my left forearm above the right forearm, which is the position you see all good players in at impact, right here, okay? So that's the first really important thing to understand. You need to start to externally rotate that shoulder in order to have the elbows together, which automatically brings that elbow more forwards in front of the hip, which just goes along with this picture you see here. Again, if I started to internally rotate the shoulder, it would lead to this picture right here, which again is a very common picture. The elbows are moving apart, and you start to see a little gap here as golfers come into the ball between the right forearm, elbow, and the side of the golfer right there. So that's the first move. We need to learn to have this external rotation of the trail shoulder. What I would say is sometimes golfers try and do this dynamically. So they'll set up in a position like this where the right arm is a little bit internal, right shoulder is a little bit internal, and then dynamically try and create this external rotation throughout the time and space of the swing. I would say it's much easier just to preset it in that position to begin with. So when you're starting off at address, you're making sure you get that elbow down to the ground, the crease up to the sky, right here. Important to add when you do this, because this happens to most golfers, if you just start to externally rotate the shoulder and go like this, notice what happens to the palm of my hand. it also goes to facing up to the sky. And if you marry the club face to that motion, then suddenly the club face would be pointing a long way off target. It'd be in a very open position. So you then have to counteract that open position by pronating the forearm. So you externally rotate the shoulder, you pronate the forearm, and you're back where you should be right here for that impact position, right? Down the line, left forearm above the right, face on, left arm club in a straight line, the crease pointing back towards the camera, not rotating to face the target. Okay, so that's the first piece you need to understand. The second piece you need to understand is the motion of the shoulders, where the shoulders during the backswing would retract, protract, and at the same time, the trail shoulder would abduct, and the lead shoulder would adduct, okay? During the downswing, it's important to retrace that course and go past in the other direction, such that the lead shoulder retracts, trail shoulder protracts, lead shoulder abducts, trail shoulder adducts. I very often simply describe those moves as having faster hands. It's the fact that the hands are going past the body like so. Okay? Very often golfers will come to the top of the swing and they'll be under the impression they need to turn their hips, turn their shoulders, and leave the hands behind. And as you leave the hands behind, again, this leads to this look right here. What is missing? Well, what's missing is the hands moving away from the trail shoulder. If I start to retract, protract, abduct, adduct, suddenly I'm back in this position right here. So it's faster hands. So you need to understand that the hands need to go past the body, like so, and you need to understand that you need to maintain the external rotation in that trail shoulder. And if you do those things, you can get that club shaft to lean nicely forwards as you hit the golf ball, and you can get this position right here. So I'm not trying to hold on to anything. All I'm trying to do is move my hands away from the shoulder. I see my hands are maybe 20 inches away from my shoulder, 21, 22, 23, 24. They're moving away from the shoulder. And as I'm doing that, I'm keeping my trail shoulder externally rotated like so. Right? And I'm practicing hitting shots from just there, doing it gently. Right there. In slow motion. So you're going to do this with two moves. One, the external rotation, elbow to the hip, squeezing the elbows. Two, faster hands. So hands moving away from the shoulder. If you do two of those two things combined, I guarantee your picture will be like this. Obviously, as you're filming yourself, this is over in the blink of an eye, like all golf swing moves. Impossible to really tell what you're doing unless you have a camera with you. So make sure you do use the camera, film it, try and get yourself a P6 where you feel like if you drew a line down from the shoulder down to the ground, your hands have reached that point already, or even a little bit forwards of it. The humerus is angled a little bit this way towards the target, as opposed to back that way away from the target. So it's right here. Any questions? As usual, let me know. Thank you very much for watching the video. Catch you soon.